Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamunatira vanachari Jamunatira vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana 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 Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira vanachari Jamunatira vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव राधे जय पंचतत्व जय पंचतत्व जय जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय ओम श्रीपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य सूत्र सत श्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki His Calm Beauty Founder Srila Prabhupada ki Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Samveta Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki Janitai Gaur Premanandi Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Svarūpam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, entitled Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy, verse number 3. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nātaḥ param parama yad bhavat paśyāmi viśva-sṛjam ekam aviśvam ātman bhūtendriyātmaka-madas upāśritosmi nātaḥ param paramayad bhavatāḥ svarūpam ānanda-mātram avikalpam aviddha-varcaḥ paśyāmi viśva-sṛjam ekam aviśvam bhūtendriyātmaka-madas upāśritosmi nātaḥ param paramayad bhavatāḥ svarūpam ānanda-mātram avikalpam aviddha-varcaḥ paśyāmi viśva-sṛjam ekam ātman bhūtendriyātmaka-madas upāśritosmi nātaḥ param paramayad bhavatāḥ svarūpam ānanda-mātram avikalpam aviddha-varcaḥ paśyāmi viśva-sṛjam ekam aviśvam bhūtendriyātmaka-madas upāśritosmi. Na, do not. Ataḥ param, hereafter. Parama, O Supreme. Yat, that which. Bhavataḥ, of your Lordship. Svarūpam, eternal form. Ānanda-mātram, impersonal Brahman effulgence. Avikalpam, without changes. Aviddha-varcaḥ, without deterioration of potency. Paśyāmi, do I see. Viśva-sṛjam, creator of the cosmic manifestation. Ekam, one without a second. Aviśvam, and yet not of matter. Ātman, O Supreme Cause. Bhūta, body. Indriya, senses. Ātmaka, on such identification. Madaḥ, pride. Te, unto you. Upāśrito, surrendered. Asmi, I am. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your Lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and yet you are untouched by matter. Please repeat. O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence, in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your Lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and yet you are untouched by matter. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, Bhaktya mām abhijanāti yāvan yaschasmi tattvataḥ The Supreme Personality of Godhead can only be partially known, and only by the process of devotional service to the Lord. Lord Brahma became aware that the Supreme Lord Krishna has many, many eternal blissful forms of knowledge. He has described such expansions of the Supreme Lord Govinda in his Brahma Samita 5.33 as follows. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayauvanam cha vedeshu durlabham adurlabhamatma bhakto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is non-dual and infallible. He is the original cause of all causes, even though he expands in many, many forms. Although he is the oldest personality, he is ever youthful, unaffected by old age. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be known by the academic wisdom of the Vedas. One has to approach the devotee of the Lord to understand him. The only way to understand the Lord as he is by devotional service to the Lord. The only way to understand the Lord as he is by devotional service to the Lord, or by approaching the devotee of the Lord who always has the Lord in his heart. By devotional perfection, one can understand that the impersonal Brahma Jyoti is only a partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and that the three Purusha expansions in the material creation are his plenary portions. In the spiritual sky of the Brahma Jyoti, there is no change of various kalpas or millenniums, and there are no creative activities in the Vaikuntha worlds. The influence of time is conspicuous by its absence. The rays of the transcendental body of the Lord, the unlimited Brahma Jyoti, are undeterred by the influence of material energy. In the material world also, the initial creator is the Lord himself. He brings about the creation of Brahma, who becomes a subsequent creator, empowered by the Lord. Nātaḥ param paramayad bhavatāḥ svarūpam ānanda-mātram avikalpam aviddha-varcaḥ paśyāmi viśva-sṛjam ekam aviśvam ātman bhūtendriyātmaka-madas upāśrito. O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your Lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and yet you are untouched by matter. Chapter is entitled Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. After a few days of hearing Krishna Lila leading up to Janmashtami and yesterday's Vyasa Puja celebrations, where we were able to immerse ourselves in many hours of remembrances and homages to Srila Prabhupada. Today we have returned to our regular Bhagavatam verse, 3rd canto, chapter 9, text 3. And it's interesting to note that Prabhupada quotes in the purport Brahma Samita. So if we read Brahma Samita, we'll see that actually it's the exact same situation as what's going on here in these verses, in this section of Bhagavatam. In the previous chapter, Lord Brahma is performing austerities. He's appeared, he's been born, and he doesn't know what his duty is. He's the only living entity in the universe. Everything is uncreated and dark, unmanifest. So he performs austerities, and then he has darshan of Lord Vishnu, and then in this chapter, he starts offering prayers to the Lord. So this exact same scenario is also covered in the Brahma Samita, where Lord Brahma similarly meditates and then has darshan of the Lord and then offers the very famous set of prayers, one of which has been quoted today in Srila Prabhupada's purport, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami, and this is the 29th chapter of the Brahma Samita. So it's very interesting to imagine what the other chapters of Brahma Samita are, because actually Brahma Samita was a lost scripture. It was no longer available in human society. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself recovered or discovered this 29th chapter of Brahma Samita when he was traveling in South India. Adikeshava temple which is border of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. When Lord Chaitanya visited that temple, he discovered this manuscript of the 29th chapter of Brahma Samita, and he copied that and kept it with him. And by his mercy, we have today the facility to hear these wonderful prayers of Lord Brahma. And of course, they've been translated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in very high English. It's very deep philosophical work. So just imagine what the other chapters of Brahma Samita are. It's a great mystery. I know sometimes I wonder, would anyone ever discover the remaining chapters of Brahma Samita? We don't even know how many chapters there are. There are at least 29. There could be many more. But at least we have the 29th chapter, and Prabhupada quotes here the relevant verse, ānanda-rūpam, advaitam-achyutam anadim ananta-rūpam. So in the verse, Lord Brahma is talking about the forms of the Lord. And in the Brahma Samita, he also talks about the ānanda-rūpam, unlimited forms of the Lord. Elsewhere in Brahma Samita, he gives some summary of some of those forms of the Lord. Rāmādi murtishu kalani amena tishta nānavatāram. So nānavatara means many incarnations. Ananta-rūpa means unlimited forms. In the Purusha Sukta also it said, ajayamano bahudha vijayate. There are many forms of the Lord. And sometimes it's even said that the Lord appears in every single species of life. So there are 8,400,000 species, 84 lakhs, Jalaja, Navalakshani, Savara, Lakshavimshati. And Prahlad Maharaj, Prabhupada writes, in Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, he also talks about so many different incarnations. And Prabhupada comments that Prahlad Maharaj says the Lord appears in every species of life. So we know a few incarnations, Dashavatar, some others, maybe 20, 30, we might be able to list if we study very meticulously. But Ananta-rūpam, they're unlimited forms of the Lord, and unlimited incarnations. In the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto of Bhagavatam, it says just like there are unlimited streams maybe flowing out of a river, that many incarnations are there. Now, there's a description of some of the major incarnations in the 3rd chapter. But this is a very limited number of incarnations. We don't know what were the pastimes of the Lord when he took form as various insects, or various aquatics, or various birds, various beasts. Well, we only have information of some of the incarnations of the Lord. So just imagine how many pastimes of the Lord have occurred in these different manifestations that we have no information of. Sometimes it's said that the Bhagavatam in the higher planets is much, much larger than our 12 cantos, 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam. And of course, we know that Lord Ananta, since the beginning of creation, with his unlimited mouths, he's been describing the glorious pastimes of the Lord, and he has never come to the end of them. Ananta literally means no end. So we struggle sometimes to read even the limited scriptures that we have access to. But actually the Lord's glories are ever expanding, unlimited, and there's no end to them. In many lifetimes we can never hope to fully understand the glories of the Lord, or even understand all his different incarnations. So by the grace of our acharyas, at least some information is there. And the primary 10 incarnations have been listed by Jayadev Goswami in his Dashavatar Stotra, which lists the 10 main incarnations of the Lord. So how many verses are there in the Dashavatar Stotra? Who can tell me? We know there are 10 incarnations, and it's literally called Dashavatar Stotra, the prayers to the 10 incarnations. So how many verses are actually in that Dashavatar Stotra? 13? Yeah, there are 12 verses. So there's the 10, one verse describing each of the avatars, starting with Matsya, Pralaya, Payodhi, Jale, Dhritavana, Sivedam, like that. And then there are 2 verses at the end. Shri Jayadeva Kaveritam Uditam Udaram Shrinu Sukhadam Shubhadam Bhavasaram Keshavadhrita Dashavidharupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. So Dashavidharupa, That's like the concluding verse where he, Keshavadrita, in all the other verses, the last line is Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa, Keshavadrita Meena Sharira, Keshavadrita Vamana Rupa, like that. It describes each of the incarnations. So Dashavidha Rupa means the 10 forms. So that verse, Jayadev Goswami is giving like the blessing, the Falashruti of the stotra. Shrinu Sukhadam Shubhadam, it brings happiness, it brings auspiciousness to chant the glories of the Lord in these 10 verses. And the other verse, which is a different meter, we may have heard it often. Sujitani Prabhu sings it after the class. There's a Nishinga Puja every day. So there's another very nice verse, which is again a summary of all those 10 incarnations. So he sings it quite regularly. Vedannudharate jaganti vahate bhugolamid bhibrate daityam dharayate balim chalayate kshatrakshayam kurvate Paulasyam jayate halam kalayate karunyamatanvate mlechan murchayate dashakrite krite krishnaya tubhyam namaha. So in this verse, he just gives one phrase for each of the 10 incarnations. Vedan uddharate, Matsya, who rescued the Vedas. Jaganti vahate, Kurma, who lifted up the great Mandara mountain. Vedan uddharate, Jaganti ved, bhugolam udbibhrate. The earth which had fallen into the ocean was raised by Varahadev. Daityam dharayate, Nishingadev, who killed the great Daitya, Hiranyakashipu. Balim chalayate, he tricked Bali Maharaj. Balim chalayate, kshatrakshayam kurvate. Parashuram, who destroyed all the kshatriyas. Polastyam jayate. Polastya is Ravana, who came in Polastya Gotra. So he defeated Ravana, Ram incarnation. Halam chalayate, Lord Balaram, who used his plow to attract the Yamuna and to kill demons. Karunyamatanvate, Lord Buddha, who displayed great compassion upon the animals that were being slaughtered in sacrifice. Mlechan murchayate, and the Kalki avatar, who comes to destroy all the mlechas at the end of Kali Yuga. So in this way, Mlechan murchayate dashakrite krite krishnaya tubhyam namaha. Jayadev Goswami is offering his obeisances to the Lord in these 10 forms, who incarnates in these 10 forms. So like that, there are so many pastimes of the Lord, and we've been very fortunate that we've been able to hear some of these pastimes in the build-up to Janmashtami, and also yesterday hearing about Srila Prabhupada's glories. In this verse, it says that the Lord cannot be known by the academic wisdom of the Vedas. Vedeshu durlabham, adurlabham, atma bhakto. One has to approach the devotee of the Lord to understand him. So it's only by the grace of Srila Prabhupada that we have access to all these scriptures, that we can have any chance of hearing about Krishna, chanting his name, engaging in the processes of devotional service. So there was a one-day Janmashtami festival, but actually here in Mayapur we have multiple Vyasa Puja celebrations. 4 or 5 days back it started. There was a celebration in the temple with the school children from the various schools in Mayapur. There was a celebration in Namhatta. There was the Russian community celebration. Like that, multiple celebrations of Vyasa Puja to glorify Srila Prabhupada, by whose grace this knowledge is now available in so many languages and so many locations all across the world, thanks to his efforts. So the only way to understand the Lord as he is by devotional service or by approaching the devotee of the Lord, who always has the Lord in his heart. So the other point Prabhupada talks about in this purport, and Lord Brahma mentions in the verse, is about the impersonal Brahman, the impersonal form of the Lord. So, as we know from Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 3 different aspects of the Lord: the impersonal, the localized, and the supreme person. Varanti tat-tattvat vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shaptyate. So there's the Brahmana effulgence of the Lord, the impersonal aspect, the localized Paramatma supersoul in everyone's heart, and then the full manifestation of the Lord as the Bhagavan, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lila Purushottam. So it's not that the devotees decry the Brahman effulgence. The Brahman is also one of the aspects of the Lord. But if one has only that understanding, impersonal understanding, then his knowledge is incomplete. So there are Mayavadis and Brahmavadis, and there are impersonalists who are offensive to the Lord. They say the Lord has no form. They proclaim that the Brahman, the impersonal aspect, is the supreme, and that Krishna is a manifestation of that impersonal. He's a personal manifestation of the impersonal supreme oneness. And this is actually kind of like the default general understanding in Hindu society, is that ultimately there is no personal God. Although there are different incarnations, the higher aspect of God is impersonal. So it's a great misfortune that this Mayavad philosophy has spread all over India, all over the world. And Srila Prabhupada, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, he came to clarify that impersonal understanding, that that's only one aspect of the Lord. That's the, perhaps you could say, the least important or the least complete understanding of the Lord is the impersonal aspect. Brahmeti paramatmitam. The yogis, they realize the paramatma in the heart. Dhyana avastita tadgatena manasa paśyāmi yogina. So by their meditation, they can have darshan of the paramatma feature of the Lord. But only the devotees who serve the Lord with love and devotion, they have access, or they have full understanding of the personal, loving aspect of the Supreme Lord, wherein one can enter into a loving relationship with Him. And Prabhupada gives the example of the sun. So the different aspects of the sun. The sunshine is one aspect that is spread all over the universe, giving warmth and energy. And then there's the sun globe, the sun planet. But within the sun planet, the actual cause of all these manifestations, both the sun planet and the sunshine, is the sun god, the personal aspect, the personality, the demigod in charge of the sun. So similarly, the rays of the bodily effulgence of the Lord, they are known as the Brahma Jyoti. That's the impersonal feature of the Lord. And then going beyond that, one comes to the Paramatma feature. And ultimately, by the grace of the Lord, by the process of bhakti, one can become aware of the personal, blissful form of the Lord, the Bhagavan aspect, which Jayadev Goswami has written about and which Lord Brahma is discussing here in this verse. He says that there's no form superior to the present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. Satchidananda Vigraha. The personal form of the Lord has all those aspects in completeness. In the previous chapter, there was a very beautiful description of the darshan of the Lord and how He's manifest in such beautiful aspects, and His decorations and jewels and ornaments and physical beauty. So we're very fortunate that Krishna is all attractive. Krishna literally means all attractive. And there's so many different ways one may be attracted to Krishna. We've been hearing some of the attractive pastimes, attractive qualities of Krishna, and there's so many of them. And according to the inclination of the devotee, he can relate to the Lord in so many different ways. And the Nectar of Devotion gives so much detail on the different rasas through which one can have a relationship with the Lord. There are 5 primary rasas: the Shanta rasa, or the neutral aspect, the Dasya rasa, or the serving the Lord in servitorship, in service as a servant, Sakhya rasa as a friend, Vatsalya rasa as a parent, and ultimately the highest is Madhurya rasa as a lover. And apart from the 5 main rasas, there are also secondary rasas. There are 7 secondary rasas that further ways one can relate to the Lord according to one's desires. Like Bhishmadev, he's famous for worshipping the Lord in Vira rasa, in chivalry. When Bhishma was leaving his body, he was remembering that very beautiful form of Krishna as the chariot driver of Arjuna, fighting against him, and he was appreciating Krishna in that aspect. So if you go through Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami has given so many details for each of the rasas. Some of them are very interesting: ghastliness, astonishment, laughter, fear, the the secondary rasas, but he's given examples for each of them, and devotees who have related to the Lord in all these different rasas. And so like that, there's so many qualities of the Lord. There are 64 qualities of the Lord. This is also described in Nectar of Devotion. And of the 64 qualities, there are 4 qualities that only Krishna in Vrindavan manifests. No other incarnation, not even Lord Vishnu has. And each of those qualities are further broken down in detail, and examples are given, and devotees are mentioned who are relating to the Lord because of those particular qualities he has. So like there's so many ways we can engage ourselves, fix our minds on Krishna in so many different aspects, because he is unlimited. Of course, he has the 6 main opulences, which are kind of more discussed: aishvaryasya, samagrasya, viryasya, yasasashraya, jnana vairagya yuktayo, shannam bhagam itingina. The Lord has full in these 6 opulences. He has all strength, all beauty, all fame, all wisdom, all renunciation, all wealth. So people are always searching after personalities in this world. Who do people follow? They follow the famous people who are very wealthy or very beautiful or very expert in particular fields, sports people or singers or actors. So people have so much attraction to these mundane personalities who possess just some tiny aspect of these opulences of Krishna. Whereas Krishna, he possesses all of these aspects in full. Shadaishwarya Purna, he's full of, he lifted Govardhan Hill at the age of 7, I believe, just on one finger. So who can, even the greatest, strong person in this world, can never match the strength of the Lord. And Krishna is so beautiful. 16,108 queens, they were spontaneously attracted to Krishna. They all wanted to marry him. And Krishna is so beautiful that even himself, sometimes he gets bewildered by his own beauty. What to speak of these very limited, temporary beauty of the material world, these great personalities that people run after. They're no comparison to the Lord's beauty, to the Lord's power, to the Lord's knowledge. We spoke Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield. It's not like Krishna had to spend 2 years researching Bhagavad Gita and writing the verses and preparing for his presentation. On the spot, Bhagavad Gita uttered forth from the Lord's mouth. At the same time, he has full renunciation. He can leave at any time. He left the rasa dance at the height of performing his ultimate lila. He left the gopis because he wanted to increase their attachment for him and separation. So there's so many ways we can be attracted to Krishna. So many qualities, and there are also so many ways we can serve Krishna. The 9 main processes of bhakti: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. This unlimited facility Krishna gives us to remember him, to serve him, to worship him. Sometimes he comes himself in these various incarnations. Sometimes he sends his empowered devotees like Srila Prabhupada to remind us about Krishna, to teach us about Krishna. He gives the Shastras to so we can access the knowledge about him, the words spoken by him, the words spoken of him by his devotees. So many ways Krishna is giving us facility to go back to Godhead, to turn our faces towards him. Unfortunately, conditioned souls have been rotting in the material world for unlimited lifetimes. Anadi bahirmukh. Bhogavancha kare nikatastha mayatare jhabati ardore. When the living entity turns the face away from Krishna, immediately the material energy captures him and plunges him into the material world. But Krishna sends his devotees, he comes himself, he gives the scriptures. Nirdreha madhyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam vikalpam guru karnadharam mayanukulyaiva nabhasviteritam puman virajyet nataret ātman. So the guru is described as the captain of the boat. The material world is compared to an ocean. Sri Guru Bhavasindhu, the material world, is like a great ocean. And the human form of life is like a suitable boat for crossing over this ocean. The other species of life don't have the facility to understand about Krishna. to actually philosophically be convinced about the supremacy of the Lord. So the human form of life is a boat. The captain of the boat is a spiritual master who gives us directions how to engage in devotional service, gives us principles to follow, to abide by, as Srila Prabhupada has done. The Vedas are considered to be, the scriptures are considered to be the favorable breeze that propel our boat across the ocean of material existence. Ultimately, crossing that ocean, we can reach the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So, the other interesting point mentioned in this verse is Lord Brahma is mentioning pride, that he's proud of his material body and senses. But the Lord, he's not untouched by such feelings, even though he is the cause of everything. So pride, of course, is a great pitfall on our process of devotion, on our journey of devotional service. Becoming proud can very quickly undermine our advancement and cause us to make offenses, and ultimately we can fall down from devotional service because of pride. Of course, Lord Brahma, he at least has something to be proud about. If you consider it, he's the original created being. He's the direct son of the Lord. He had darshan of the Lord. He created this entire universe. Everybody is a descendant of Lord Brahma. He's the head of our sampradaya. He had darshan of the Lord multiple times. So if someone has to be proud, Lord Brahma has good reason to be proud. But here he's questioning himself, mentioning that pride. And so for anyone else, what reason do we have to be proud? We're so insignificant, so tiny. At any moment we can be knocked away by Maya's tricks. Unless we stay very tightly sheltered under the shade of the Lord's lotus feet, we can be very easily distracted from devotional service. And there are so many examples of that in our scriptures and in our own society. So if we consider, Lord Brahma's pride, at least he has some reason to be proud, genuine. He's actually a great personality. Whereas, we're very humble, simple, fallen souls struggling in this Kali Yuga. So many distractions, so many temptations. On days like Janmashtami, we may be able to absorb more, but day to day, it's every day a struggle. How much time we're going to give to Krishna, how much time we're going to give for Maya. So we always have to be very careful and remind ourselves of our fallen condition and remain humble. If we become proud of our progress in devotional service, we start committing offenses, disrespecting devotees or neglecting to serve Vaishnavas, then very easily we can be tricked by Maya and fall down. That's why it's part of our sadhana to always pay obeisances, right? When we come in the temple multiple times a day, every altar, we pay obeisances. We humble ourselves, that we're nobody in front of Krishna. We're nobody in front of the spiritual master. You may have seen the videos of Gopal Krishna Maharaj on his last visit to Vrindavan. He's so frail, so weak, and he's paying obeisances in front of each altar. If you haven't seen, you should really, it's easy to find on YouTube. Gopal Krishna Maharaj paying obeisances, with great difficulty. The servant has to hold him, help him rise, and help him pay his obeisances to the Lord. You could say that, he's such a senior devotee, he's so old, doesn't need to do that. He can just, do like this, like so many people do. But no, to showing the example, Raghunath Das Goswami every day is it right? He did the Dandavat Parikrama of Govardhan every day. Even at an advanced age. So these acharyas, they teach us how to remain humble, how to pay obeisances to the Vaishnavas, how to pay obeisances to the Lord. We do it as a routine thing, just becomes a habit. We don't even think of it. But actually there's so much deep import in every act we perform in devotional service. Prostrating oneself, dandavat. Dandavat, it literally means like a stick. And we hear like how Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they paid their obeisances like a stick. So literally that means that, if you put a stick upright and just let go, it's going to just fall down flat. So generally we don't do that because there'll be risk of concussion and, injuring ourselves. But actually that's what it means. Dandavat means to pay obeisances like a stick falling down like a rod. So And the other, the straw in the mouth, danta trina, that's not something that is culturally, I think, understood these days, but they would, as a sign of great humility, keep a straw in their mouth. Hard to relate to today, perhaps, but in those days it was a sign of extreme humility. Paying obeisances like a rod and keeping that straw in the mouth in front of a superior personality. Always considering oneself a humble servant, no matter how senior, how advanced one may be. Acting in front of the spiritual master like a very submissive, humble servant. So if we can keep these points in mind in our bhakti path, then we can try to avoid this pitfall of pride, and which will be a great impediment in our spiritual life. So just a final point I'd like to make is Prabhupada talks here quite a bit about the impersonal feature, and in our Shastras there are many examples of impersonalists who, once they had some exposure or some mercy that they were able to come in touch with the personal feature of the Lord, then they transformed and they took up bhakti and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Bhagavan feature. The other day we were hearing about Shukadeva Goswami in the class on Friday, how he was fully immersed in Brahmananda, so much so that he just left home as one being born, and his father Vyasadeva had to devise a means of luring him back so he could study Srimad Bhagavatam, so he could be educated about the personal aspect of the Lord. So Shukadeva Goswami, the four Kumaras, when they had darshan of Lord Vishnu, and they smelt the tulsi offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, and then their bhakti was aroused. In Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, we have Svarūpam Bhattacharya, who was a great impersonalist, and he was explaining Vedanta philosophy to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But when Lord Chaitanya, he could tell that Lord Chaitanya was not an ordinary personality. But when he was trying to preach to Lord Chaitanya through philosophy, Lord Chaitanya had no interest in hearing his explanations. And when he gave the devotional purport to the Vedanta Sutra and showered his mercy upon Svarūpam Bhattacharya, then Svarūpama immediately became such a great Vaishnava on the spot. Similarly, the Mayavadi sannyasis in Varanasi, when Lord Chaitanya manifested his Brahman effulgence to them, they were shocked, and very quickly he, just in a few minutes of preaching, he totally dismantled their limited impersonal conception of the Lord, and they became great Vaishnavas just on the spot by his potency. Lord Chaitanya also explained the famous Atmarama verse, which is from the first canto of Bhagavatam. Atmaramas chumunayo dirgrantha apyarukrame kurvanti haitukim bhaktim itham bhūto guno harihi. Does anyone know how many times Lord Chaitanya explained this verse? How many different explanations he gave of the Atmarama verse? There are 2 chapters in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anyone know how many times? 61 times he explained the verse to Sanatana Goswami. Originally he explained it in 18 different ways to Svarūpam Bhattacharya, and Sanatana Goswami, when he met Lord Chaitanya, he asked him that, I heard you explain this verse in 18 different ways. Could you please share with me also? And Lord Chaitanya said, I'm a madman. Svarūpam Bhattacharya is also a madman. I don't know what I spoke then, but I'll try to say something. And then he explained in 61 different ways this verse. Now, which again is showing that the Bhagavan feature of the Lord is the ultimate. Even the Atmaramas. Atmarama means they're fully satisfied in themselves, self-satisfied. The munis, they're not after any kind of sense gratification. They're immersed in the spiritual happiness. But even those personalities, bhaktim, kurvanti haitukam bhaktim, itham bhūto gunohari, when they hear about the glories of the Lord, then they're attracted. So that shows that the personal form of the Lord is higher than the impersonal form of the Lord. The munis are perfectly happy meditating on the impersonal Brahman, but when they come in touch with the personal qualities of the Lord, with the beauty of the Lord, with the knowledge of the Lord, the 6 different qualities, all different qualities of the Lord, his amazing qualities, then they're attracted and they take up the higher position of bhakti. So yet again, it's another indication of the supremacy of the supreme personal feature of the Lord above the Brahman and Paramatma features. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for the devotees who are attending Bhagavatam class every day. I've been living in Mayapur for over 30 years, and I have to say that the attendance these days is quite low. So we hope that more devotees who are maybe sitting at home listening on Mayapur TV, which was very good in COVID when we couldn't come to the temple, but don't get habituated to only watching Mayapur TV. Please come to the temple and have darshan in person, try to hear in person. It's more enlivening when there are more devotees together. So congratulations, all of those who come every day. Those who are hearing, I would encourage you to see if you can also make it in person. Any question or comment? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for such a nice class. In the beginning and in the end, you mentioned about the impersonalism, and you quoted Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantra. So it's almost going to be like 50 years of his disappearance. And as you rightly mentioned, that the impersonalism is still so widely spread. So my suggestion is we have so many varieties of education in our education institute. So there should be one category where we train devotees to defeat impersonalism. Because unless one is fully knowledgeable in discussing these topics, we know that one should avoid listening to them. So that's my suggestion. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Anything else? Vasudeshtaru.
Just a small correction before I just read from here. It is revered that within Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the 16th century founder Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rediscovered part of the work, the 62 verses of chapter 5 of the Brahma Samita.
Chapter 5, I'm sorry. You're right. Not the 29. I must have thought of some verse 29. Thank you. Chapter 5 of Brahma Samita, not 29. Still, there could be many more chapters.
Hare Krishna, I wanted to ask if you can explain difference between Brahmavadis and Mayavadis. How are we relating to these two categories? Or how do you understand the difference?
Voidist and impersonalist, nirvishesh and shunyavad. I should have probably read up on that. Mayavadi, of the two, the Mayavadis are, Mayavadi bhasha shunle hoy sarvanash. They're the, Mayavadis are the ones we're supposed to avoid hearing from. So those are like the hardcore impersonalists who deny the personal feature of the Lord, or they don't accept the personal feature of the Lord. Whereas there are also innocent impersonalists who simply don't have knowledge of the Bhagavan feature. So those persons are more likely to come to devotional service, because as we mentioned, these devotees who may have previously only been exposed to or had knowledge of the impersonal feature, when they get knowledge of the personal feature, then they're attracted and they can raise themselves. But the hardcore Mayavadis, they're actually offensive to the Lord, and they say that he has no form, he doesn't have hands, he doesn't have legs, he cannot do anything, he's just the Brahman effulgence, and the ultimate goal is to merge into that effulgence. One loses identity, one becomes one with the Lord. So like that, they're offensive, and so those are the kind of hardcore Mayavadis that we should avoid associating with, especially avoid hearing from, that we can chant Hare Krishna to anyone and give prasad to anyone, and hope that even such hardcore Mayavadis can be attracted to the Lord, but we may not be so empowered like Lord Chaitanya to enter an assembly of Mayavadis and expect to convert them all. I think there will be a more correct technical differentiation. I don't know if anyone else may be able to help answer that.
Guruji, I heard that Mayavadis, when they say that the avatars of the Lord is all Maya, but for impersonalists, they say that these all are coming from the Brahman, the avatars.
Yeah.
So that becomes sinful, that you say that the Lord is material. So this is what I heard, one aspect to it, that Mayavadis say that Lord's activities in this world is also Maya.
Yeah, everything is Maya, ultimately, they say. Jagat Satya, what is it? Brahman Satya Jagat Mithya, yeah. It's quite interesting, actually, Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra talking about the Nirvisheshan Shunyavad in the Western countries, because, it's kind of the influence from India, of the impersonalism from India has also spread all over the world. And even some of the major religions like Buddhism, they don't believe in a personal form of the Lord. They don't believe in God, actually. So in one sense, Buddhism is not even a religion, because there's no God, ultimately, that they worship. So it's very pervasive, this idea that ultimately there's no personal form of God, or even if there is a personal form of God, some religions, they don't know what he looks like. And it's verse of Brahma Samita says that though he's the oldest personality, he is ever youthful. So in Christianity, they think because God is so old, he must be, wrinkled and have a long white beard and very unattractive. Or in Islam, they have no idea what God looks like. They can't show any depiction of God. So very limited understanding. We're so fortunate that we have our scriptures that give us the higher understanding of what God looks like, who are his associates, what he likes to do. Everything is given in our scriptures. We're very fortunate to have access to that. So anyway, time is up. I hope I was able to partially answer your question and remind ourselves of the great treasure of Srimad Bhagavatam and the blessings that we've been given by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our parampara. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Brahmanandi.